Tonight's Democratic debate will take place in Washington, D.C. instead of Arizona. The DNC making the move due to concerns about the coronavirus. The logic here, moving the debate to the CNN studio in D.C. reduces the cross-country travel for the candidates, their staffers, and debate moderators. There will also be no live audience. Welcome to Politics Unplugged. I'm Tony Kovaleski, sitting in for Ann on this Sunday. The coronavirus is having an impact in national politics and, of course, here in Colorado. Just over halfway through the legislative session, state lawmakers have a heaping pile of bills and a lengthy to-do list to get finished. And legislative leaders are scrambling to try to figure out the legal and political ramifications of potentially suspending the work.
There is no decision to suspend session.
Speaker of the House Casey Becker making it clear Thursday that nothing is changing yet and that Democratic leadership is going to base decisions on science and what health officials advise. In other words, they're evaluating the situation minute by minute, keeping in mind a worst-case scenario.
We're still looking into what our legal authority is, our constitutional authority is to suspend the session, and we're still consulting experts that are telling us what we should do.
Becker says there are about 350 bills unresolved in the legislature right now, and that there's been time and money invested where a lot of things are at stake. Republican leaders agree everything needs to be evaluated before serious decisions are made.
I've had great conversations, at least in the House, with the majority leader and the speaker, and seems to be working well together.
Now, Governor Polis has been providing daily updates on the virus. His message, keep calm, make smart decisions and choices, and we're all in this together. It was perhaps the governor's finest moment since his election.
It can be difficult, it can seem surreal, but leadership means telling the truth and making the calls that are scientifically indicated to protect our health, the public safety, and the lives of our fellow Coloradans. But we are in the middle of one of the greatest international public health disasters of our lifetime, an internationally declared pandemic by the World Health Organization. And it's critical for us to take it seriously to protect our most vulnerable Coloradans and protect the ability of our state's healthcare system to treat them and others who need treatment. Many Coloradans will get coronavirus. Either you'll get it, a friend will get it, a family member will get it, and many of those will have minor symptoms and not require medical treatment. This is really an extraordinary moment, and it calls for extraordinary measures. The longer that other states and other cities and other countries hesitate, the greater the risk becomes. And dealing with this public health crisis needs to be our top focus. It really supersedes all other concerns. It's the responsibility of every Coloradan to do our part to limit the severity of this public health emergency. And Coloradans are resilient. We faced tough times before, but we're going to get through this together. We're going to come out the other side stronger. We hope to be an example in the nation of taking the steps that we need to minimize the impact on our vulnerable populations. But it's going to take all of us doing our part and doing right by one another to get through this.
And to continue the conversation, Marianne Goodland is a longtime legislative reporter currently covering the Capitol for ColoradoPolitics.com. She is joining us now. And Marianne, ever see anything like this? Obviously not.
No, and the thing that you hear from legislative leaders and lawmakers themselves is no one, lobbyists, lawmakers, reporters, has ever been in this kind of situation before.
And you've got an interesting precedent here because we're talking about the NHL, the NCAA, NBA, golf, the PGA Tour, everybody canceling, and now the legislature is continuing. What kind of precedent issue does that raise? And you're also talking about many legislators 60 years and older in that high-risk zone.
That's correct. And things are changing very, very rapidly. Between Thursday and Friday, the conversation was, will the General Assembly adjourn and put the session on a pause, basically? And as of Friday, the answer is a when, not an if. And it's likely to happen probably within the next week. It won't be over the weekend, but at some point next week, the General Assembly is going to ask the Supreme Court to rule in on a constitutional question about how they can adjourn. There are some real questions about that. And if they do it wrong, as Minority Leader Chris Holbert told me the other day, the risk is that they could get sued for anything that they do after May 6th, if they continue to meet after May 6th, for example. So what I'm hearing right now is what they want is to let the clock keep running. They'll adjourn for some period of time, could be 2 weeks, could be a month, could be longer. And the 120-day clock will continue to run and run out on May 6th. If they need to come back after that, the governor can call them back for a special session. What that means practically, though, is that those hundreds of bills that are still awaiting action, basically very little is going to get done until they come back.
And you're talking about the nuts and bolts of executing and getting it finished, but let's talk about the reality. The governor talked on Friday about no groups of 250 or more gathering. We've both been in the Capitol. Any given day, there's far more than 250 people there.
Correct.
And if you're going to send that message throughout the state and cancel concerts and other events, and the legislature keeps working, the precedent issue's there. And then the next question is what about the budget? Because we don't have a budget right now. So it's a problem.
It is a problem. The Joint Budget Committee, which writes the budget, can continue to meet even if the legislature adjourns. And they do meet off session. They do it all the time. They are waiting for a very critical revenue forecast that's supposed to come out next week. It's supposed to be on Tuesday. And that revenue forecast will tell them what adjustments they have to make to the budget, especially considering the ride that the market has been on in the last month. That's likely to result in some precipitously big changes. And they're going to have to rewrite that budget in order to make the numbers all work. Now, the Constitution says that the legislature has one job and one job only, and that is to pass a budget. They must do that, and they must do it so that it goes into effect and is signed by the governor by June 30th.
So obviously, a lot in play. This next week is going to be very interesting.
Very.
Marianne Goodland from ColoradoPolitics.com. I would shake your hand, but we know we can't do that anymore. Thank you very much for coming in. We'll have much more on Politics Unplugged when we come back.